We went skiing and backpacking in 6 feet of snow with temperatures dipping below 0 degrees, but I stayed warm and comfortable. What did I pack and what should you pack for a future winter backpacking experience? Stay tuned. A few weeks ago, the Outer Vitals team and I headed up the mountain into the high elevation tundra that is above us in the middle of January. The temperatures are low, but the winds are high, which makes for some extreme conditions to test some product in. This right here is everything that I took on that trip. It weighed in at just under 20 pounds, which is typically heavy for my own personal gear loadout, but there are some very luxurious items in here that I'm about to take you through that could keep you extremely comfortable on any trips of your own. Now, before I get too far into this, the first thing you guys are gonna say is, well, this is a 45 liter pack, when really I used a 40 liter pack. Now, this is the pack I used. It's top secret and I can't show you any more details. But that being said, I repackaged everything into the 45 liter Shadowlight, which actually gave me more room, but I was a little more sloppy, as you can see here. This could have been condensed a little tighter. All right, so let's go through this pack from the outside in. What I'm keeping on the outside to grab quickly while I'm on the trail. For starters, you're gonna see right here a pair of gloves. These are some black diamond insulated gloves that I was using for a lot of the hiking. You'll see on this side, I do have a tripod, which I'll get rid of, just for some additional filming. If I lift this off here, this is my closed cell phone pad. It adds about 2 R value to whatever pad you're using. So this type of pad is critical when going into winter conditions with a 3-season pad. You'll also see this pocket right here, it's just tucked down in there. This is the Nebo windbreaker. You'll see me hiking a lot in winter conditions with this piece. It breathes, it's super, super light. I can literally tuck it in this tiny top pocket, and it was just a phenomenal piece for conditions like this where it's windy, but you're active. I also have some items like some cord for setting up, and let's see if anyone can guess why I have these. They're just a little loud. I was actually sliding my foot into this bag and then into my ski boot to keep moisture from getting in from the outside or even moisture in from the inside. What that does is it makes sure that you moving in those boots and sweating are not putting additional moisture into your boots so that they don't freeze up overnight. I will say, I think it also adds a small boost in warmth, but that's not the purpose that I was using them for. And yes, they did work. It's just like a vapor sock, if you've ever heard of that. It's just going to help with moisture management in your boot and keep your feet more warm and more comfortable. Over on this side of the pack, you're gonna see that I have some additional gloves. These are some liner gloves from Outdoor Research. It's just a shell so that I can layer on the inside, but I also really prefer having 2 separate gloves, to have an insulated glove and a shell so that when I get my gloves moist, I can dry them back out way easier and in the field. I have another pair of gloves here. These were some bigger, heavier ones that I wanted to bring to use the stove, which I will get to because I do have a full wood burning stove in here. But these just help me if I do need to touch it, especially when the stove is still hot and dirty. I've got smart water bottles on both sides. Pop those out. And then I've got some pieces that go to the tent itself. This is a carbon fiber pole that goes up to about 7 feet. These are all the stakes that I brought, which I ended up not really using. I mainly just used sticks that we found and used for stakes because the snow was so deep, and really these were unusable. On this side over here, this also goes to the titanium stove. This is the stove pipe and part of the body of the stove. Let's see what else I got in here. Sunglasses. These were on my face pretty much the whole time. I don't know that I ever put them away except for after dark. When you're going out in winter conditions and it's snowy, you have to have sunglasses. You will melt your eyes in no time out there. And of course, toilet paper. On this side over here, for quick access, I had a food bag. You can see there, a big smashed thing of butter. That's also in the other video if you want to go check out why I brought a bunch of butter. I've got a titanium pot. Now I did jump to the 700 milliliter just because I knew I would be melting snow, whereas usually I'm using that 550. And on the subject of, going back to that subject of food, I always keep one of these pockets full of snacks. This one right here had snacks in it. In fact, I think they all did. I just stick snacks everywhere I can. But on this side of the pack, I had a microphone for my phone and Headlamp, like to keep that close at hand. Lip balm, a lighter, and this little guy. Now this right here is called the sensor push, and what's really unique about this is this tracks temperatures the entire time you're out. So this gives me a super accurate temperature reading, humidity and other factors right to my phone. So I can put this outside the tent or wherever I want it at night. It's going to track those temperatures and give me the low, which I believe the tracked low is -2 or -3 degrees on this trip in particular. Okay, that is everything on the outside. No, it's not. I always leave my spoon here. Got my Outdoor Vitals titanium spoon, which maybe you've never seen that before. Stay tuned. I was also hiking in this piece right here. This is the Vario jacket from Outdoor Vitals. All right, let's dive into the top of this pack now. This right here is all of my clothes. For starters, I have a Nova Pro. Now this piece is absolutely critical, and in these conditions, this has been the best jacket I've ever owned. With this Nova stitchless fabric, it blocks the wind so well. And at high elevation in the winter, you are going to be in windy conditions. I love that piece. I've got a pillow, just kind of threw that into here. Now this is our merino wool neck gaiter. This is the full-sized one. What I love about this is you can see there is a taper on this, which allows you to tuck it up into your hat and keep it in place a lot easier, or you can flip that upside down. But this is very critical just to keep that wind from blowing on your cheeks or to keep you from getting sunburned in all of that reflective snow. These are things that I was wearing. These are my Darn Tough socks. These are the Micro Cruise, I believe. I had Sawtooth pants on. So again, these are worn clothes. Over here, I'll put them. And I hiked in with a altitude sun hoodie. I was also wearing Dragon Wool boxers and these wool nets that you've maybe seen in some previous videos. These work really well for temperature regulation, but also keeping the edge off in extreme cold conditions. So love those. Now, as far as some sleeping gear, I had a Tern hoodie. Now I did hike out in this the next day, but I love sleeping in the Tern. It's so comfortable. As soon as I get to camp, I'll essentially try to get this on, get any moisture that was maybe built from the hike in off of my body, switch to a clean, warm, nice base layer. So I'll switch to the Tern hoodie. This right here is just a new fleece that we're experimenting with. It's an active fleece, so it's going to breathe really well, but has quite high loft. So I did a little bit of hiking in that. And then I also have that same fleece in a sock. And so I slept in these. And I also slept in these. These are the Outer Vitals Loft-Tech Hybrid booties. So my feet were incredibly warm in that combo right there. And I did bring a Loft-Tech Hybrid balaclava as well. Now the last thing that I have in here is some prototype leggings, which you may see later this year. These are just a polyester fleeced legging that are extremely warm and comfortable for their weight. Now, one thing that I skipped over really quickly is we were on skis, so I was using the ski boots that came with the rented skis we had. I also found out from last year's experience that using gaiters in those scenarios is very important. It keeps the snow from getting in the top of the boot, especially once you get to camp and start walking around. I will also say that I did have some extra layers in there for testing, especially in the jacket department. But this Nebo, I just wanted to come back to it. This was probably my favorite piece on that trip, and this will be available to you very shortly. So make sure you're subscribed to the Outdoor Vitals newsletter, and you'll see this one again soon. All right, so getting into the rest of this bag. Right here on the top, I've got my little zipper dry bag. I just want to show you a few things in here. I have my Garmin InReach. I've got a little bit more cord. I've got a battery bank, which is always important to do when you're going out in winter. Make sure you have enough battery. I did have some hand warmers, which I didn't end up using, and then just my other typical survival stuff, which I've gone over a handful of times. This right here, this is the Oblivion sleeping pad, which should be available to you at the time of this recording. It's our brand new sleeping pad that is much warmer and more comfortable. Pretty much everyone on the trip was using this pad. As I showed you earlier, I was layering these two. So this is a tested and certified 3.5 R value, layered with this piece right here. Technically, it's getting you up to about 5.5 R value. But most people are actually using our 1/8" foam pads and maybe layering 2 of those. Everyone stayed warm. I specifically asked them how it did. It did great. While this is technically a 3-season pad, by layering it with an additional pad, it works even in this 4th season. So next up in here is my sleep system. Inside of here, I've got a 15-degree sleeping bag, our Summit sleeping bag, and a 15-degree top quilt. Now this was absolutely overkill. If you were to do this for yourself, I would recommend actually doing the 15-degree Summit and a 30-degree top quilt. However, my 30-degree top quilt had wandered off, so I put in the 15. Slept extremely warm, extremely comfortable all night, and layering like that is one of my favorite ways to get people into a sleep system that can span a massive temperature range. A 30-degree top quilt can get you through a ton of the summer. You can have a 15-degree sleeping bag, and then layering those, you can get I've slept in this combo with a 30-degree top quilt down to -15 degrees Fahrenheit and stayed extremely warm. Okay, that's it. No, just kidding. We still have the shelter to go over here, so let's pull that out. Ooh. That's everything in the pack, so I'll put that down. This is the big kahuna. This is a 4-person TP shelter from Seek Outside called the Red Cliff. This is a phenomenal piece, but it's way big. It's way bigger than I'm used to carrying, but we did have 2 people sleeping in this shelter. So let's go over that really quick. It's a 4-person shelter with a stove. They say 3 or maybe even a 2-person shelter. I think you could get 3 in here. But the way this can work is you need this, you need stakes, and you need the pole. So that right there is actually gonna weigh in at about 73 ounces. And this is the titanium stove. So that lays really flat. You've got the stovepipe and the body in there. This right here weighs in at just a little over 2 pounds. And so between these, I'll help you out with some quick mental math. You're at about 6.5 pounds for this whole shelter. Now that's heavy. That's heavy if it's for 1 person. Split that up with 2 of you. Now you're just over 3 pounds for each of you. And then we crammed in 5 or 6 people, I think, into this. And we hung out for about 5 to 6 hours after the sun was going down. So it made for a very, very enjoyable experience where we're just sitting there stoking the fire, drying out gear, melting snow, and eating. We had some really, really good food. The last piece, I guess, of my shelter here too is this is just a footprint for a different tent. I laid this down because this is a floorless shelter before I put my pad and my sleeping bag down. All right, so there you have it. There's my entire system for an ultra-light, ultra-luxury setup. Now again, if I had split this tent up, my pack would have been coming in closer to that 17-pound mark, which is still pretty acceptable considering how warm and comfortable I was. And I think it is a testament that I never used these hot hands because I was just so comfortable and I never did get that cold, even in these freezing temperatures. If you guys want to see more on this trip, we'll drop a link right up here so that you can see just how fun and enjoyable this trip was and see all of this gear working in real time. Hopefully this inspires you to get outdoors year round. It's a great time to be out there. Now let me know what your favorite piece of winter backpacking gear is, and we'll see you guys out on the trail.